Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to this live stream. I'm with a beautiful, peaceful looking, happy brother, Anghil. Hopefully, I've got his name pronounced correctly now. And apologies for starting a little bit late today. So, firstly, how are you doing, brother?
So, doing great, bro. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. You have this very positive vibe. When even last time I was speaking to you, I was like, this guy, he's got some very positive energy. Like
Man,
you're a very
Alhamdulillah, bro.
positive person.
Oh, I try. But Alhamdulillah, man. I, if I wasn't Muslim, if I wasn't practicing today, it's very turbulent. It's like some days good, some days not. But I try my best. I try my best.
Alhamdulillah, that's excellent. I was just talking earlier to somebody in our office, and I mentioned that I have this live stream with Ang Hill today, and he said, "Oh yeah, I used to watch his stuff before he became Muslim," and he was saying a lot of things that Islam really agrees with and stuff. And I think um, people that are aware of your work online, it came as quite a surprise. Obviously your journey to Islam. Before we get into why you became Muslim, I just want to ask you a few questions about your background, where you grew up, why you started the channel, and why you do what you do. So to begin off with, like, what's your background? Like, where were you born and your schooling and this type of thing?
Yeah, so I was born in Puerto Rico. I was actually born in San Juan. Um, as for the day and all that stuff, I don't think it matters, and I really couldn't tell you if I wanted to, bro. To be honest, but I grew up like midway between Florida and Puerto Rico, so it was like back and forth type deal. Um, as far as schooling goes, I went to college. I finished. I finished not bachelor's, but the associates, and I took a break, and I've been on that break ever since. But I've continued my own studies. Alhamdulillah, I've continued my own studies, and yeah, man, I just this is what I do. This is it's a little short snippet.
Yeah, I see that on your channel you're more interested in trying to help people than speak about yourself, and you seem to be quite empathetic to some real life challenges that we face. So, um, on your channel, there's quite a few viral videos, especially when it comes to self help, dealing with addiction, and these types of things. So, what was the original intent of the channel, and how did you come up with the sort of content that you currently have there?
Yeah, so the original intent was to actually document my no fat journey. You see, before I got into YouTube, I was a consumer, like most people, just watching YouTube videos. And I was dealing with a lot of issues, but the biggest issue that I had at the time was not to get too much into detail, but it revolved around sexual issues with the partner that I had, the woman that I was with at the time. And I was wondering why I was having these issues. And then when I started looking deeper and deeper into these causes, I started realizing, oh wow, I have an addiction. I have a pornography addiction. And then I started looking to see if other people had it too, or if it was just like something that I was struggling with. And then come to find out there's all these people that have this issue. And then there were people on YouTube that were actually documenting their journey of like overcoming. I was like, wow, like that's beautiful. Like I'm getting so much value from these people's videos. Like I would like to do the same thing here. And then that's when I decided to make the YouTube videos, and it's evolved ever since.
Yeah, and I think the angle from which you come has really attracted a lot of people, especially young people, and they found that the way that you speak about these issues is in a very real way, a very raw way, a way that you're sort of, you know, you're not trying to give yourself like undue credit. You're just being real. You're saying, look, these are real life issues. They need to be dealt with. Um, and you're trying to basically help people from that perspective. So would it be correct to describe you like a life coach? Like that's your thing now. You're about helping people have these life hacks and make their lives more productive and meaningful.
Yeah, I guess to an extent. You know, I never planned for it to be like that, but to an extent, that's what it is now.
Yeah. And the sort of, people that you've helped, not necessarily that you spoke to them directly, but you have obviously comments, many, many comments from many people who've gone through the stuff and they've benefited from it. When you started getting these results, like when I checked out your channel, Alhamdulillah, some of the videos were like over 1 million and whatnot. Did you realize that the scale of the problem of things like these types of addictions was as big as this? Or was that a surprise for you as well?
Not really. I understood like on a deep level that we all have this issue. You know, like think about it, like sexuality, if it's not kept in check, what does it do? Like, it hurls
Mm,
out of control very easily. So I knew that this was something that other people were struggling with. You know, in the beginning, yeah, like I was very ignorant, and I thought, you know what, like, am I the only one with this issue? But that's because I was experiencing a specific issue, and that was again, like, not to get into too much details, but it was sexually related. I'm sure if people were to watch enough of my videos at some
yeah,
point or another, I probably said what it was.
yeah,
But I thought I was the only one with that specific issue, but I found out a lot of people had that issue, not in regards to the sexual addiction or just these problems with, our sexuality. I think that's something that we all have issues
yeah.
with. Even the people that have it in check, they still struggle with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, on your channel, if you go through the comments and you go through it's like a processual issue that, especially if you don't have a faith, you don't have something to ground you. It's like you said, it's like a car spiraling out of control until it hits something, it hits rock bottom, and it's absolutely, destroyed. Now, something that we sort of briefly discussed when I came on a live stream with the three Muslims, is about, from the perspective of, if you like, the hedonistic dream, the dream of following your desires and these types of things. You're a young man, very popular online, mashallah, handsome, access to, through fame, women, money, wealth, status, image, everything is there. Somebody could question, Anghil, why would you, of all people, you're not some starving person who's in dire need to, to call out to God, and religious people at the end of the day, they're mostly poor, or there's all these misconceptions that we're somehow self-sufficient and these types of things. So with you, somebody would say, well, why would someone like that come to Islam, a religion that looks restrictive and leads to unhappiness? Like,
Mm.
how would you address that type of question?
Mm. So first off, I'd say, like, if we look at it psychologically speaking, we're all pretty much kids that have grown up and can understand things a little better than what we used to back in the day. But if you think of us as like little kids had parents and teachers and people basically like disciplining them and telling them what to do. And as we grow up, we lose that discipline. And in my opinion, a successful adult versus an unsuccessful adult is one who can discipline himself. Now, if you start to discipline yourself, let's say you
Yeah,
take faith out of the equation, you have no faith. Let's say you're an atheist or you're into this new age stuff, all right? If you start to discipline yourself, you will inevitably get to the point where it leads you to religion. And
mm,
again, like if we had spoken about this in the podcast with the other brothers as well on the Three Muslim channel, but if you get to this point, you start asking yourself these questions like, okay, well, why am I here? What's my purpose?
mm,
Where am I going after this? And it's again like if you are disciplining yourself, there has to be reason why you're disciplining yourself. You don't just discipline yourself for X thing, because once you reach X thing, you realize, well, this isn't it. I'm not fulfilled. This is not the end of the journey. The journey keeps going. I've reached the peak of the mountain. Now it's time to go on to another mountain. So, and by going to another mountain, you have to have even more discipline now, because you realize you had all this discipline. You got to the top, and you're like, damn, this isn't it. It keeps going. So when you have this discipline and you realize that there is really no end here, you start to ask yourself, why do I have this discipline? Why am I truly disciplining myself here? And it all leads to the truth if you are sincerely seeking the truth here.
Wow.
So that's my answer, man.
That's a really beautiful way of putting it. I mean, what you said was, from a sociological perspective, quite profound, because you're saying the difference between two adults is essentially who is more disciplined. And a good way of describing it is the history of civilization is to restrain human beings. That's the very purpose of a civilization. Because if you look at it from the animal world, if an animal wants to reproduce, if the animal wants to have sex, it does so. If it wants to eat, it eats. If it wants to steal the food of its fellow animal, it does so. There is no concept of restraint. But if you look at civilization and the civilizations that were successful in the past, is that they are civilizations which taught people that you have to restrain your unfettered desires. You have to learn to discipline yourself. You have to learn this willpower to distance yourself from instant gratification and to focus on something greater. And what's interesting as well is that the history of the civilizations which we've had as human beings always began off with people that were very disciplined and knew how to stop the human desire from becoming a monster. And then as those civilizations, which normally started off poor and then they became richer and richer, and people indulged in their desires for wealth, status, power, money, these types of things, then those civilizations were destroyed internally. So in a way, you're sort of capturing the human journey, which is in essence a journey of self-discipline to get to not self-righteousness, to get to righteousness, to get to something greater than ourselves.
100%. And what you had mentioned, if I can remember this correctly, there's this cycle that happens where we go from a state of needing to survive.
Yeah.
Right. Then we get to a state of abundance. And then once we get to abundance, we get to the state of comfort. And through the state of comfort comes the internal destruction, which then leads us to this weakened state, which then brings us back to a state of survival. And then it continues in this cycle, something along those lines. I definitely butchered that.
One, exactly like you said. And one way that I've seen this explained is that hard times create good men create good times create bad men create bad times, and then the cycle goes on.
Yeah, you said it. That's exactly what I was trying to say. So
yeah, I mean,
just because I hear, bro.
Even if we look at, for example, here in contemporary, here in Britain, if we go back to, say, the Victorian times, which is just 100 and whatever years, people were quite conservative. There was this type of thing where you didn't just have unfettered following of desires. The weak were people that were supposed to be taken care of. People understood that they need to sacrifice things in order for the next generation. And then in the 1950s and 60s, you started to get this massive movement of liberalization and sexualization. And, some psychologists were saying the idea of sexual jealousy will disappear, because just like the hippies were going around having sex parties and swinger parties. And so they had this idea that marriage will go away, partners will go away, everyone will have sex with everybody. Nobody will be jealous that their wife or husband or whoever is sleeping with somebody. But then the opposite happened. Society became more conservative in the 80s and 90s, which is interesting because the society before the Victorians in Europe were more promiscuous than the Victorians. So human beings go through this cycle, you know, that we realize that when we liberalize ourselves to a point, it's like an elastic band, it snaps and it goes back to something more conservative. Because take, for example, the nuclear family system, right? Traditional family system, you know, the wife having a particular gender role, the husband having a particular gender role, both of them functioning to raise up the kids, essentially sacrificing their own desires for the sake of the children. That leads to a society that's stable. But then in today's society, you know, sadly, people don't want to stick with the same partner. They go on to these apps, you know, whatever they are, and swipe and find a new partner. Okay, they don't want to take care of the child. You know, the child grows up in a broken home. Then there's increase in crime. So, not having self-restraint leads to real life implications for millions of people. These aren't abstract ideas, you know. It's about essentially fixing the problem at the root of the issue. If your house is made of bricks and every single brick has a fault, then the whole house will crumble. Likewise, every family unit collectively makes the human civilization. And the human civilization is dependent on the family unit. And unless these sexual type of issues are dealt with the sort of work that you're doing, you will not have a functioning governing society.
100%.
Something else I just wanted to bring you back to as well is your journey to Islam. So obviously you did the no fap stuff, you did all of the rest of your life hack stuff. You realized that you need to, you know, have that self-discipline, and you know, you spoke about sincerity. So how did you even come across Islam, and what was your background before? What did you believe before that?
Oh man, so it was a roller coaster actually. So I was born into, I'd say it was like somewhat Catholic household. And my mom, she was a Catholic. She didn't enforce it too much because my dad, he I'd say he just believed in God. He wasn't really religious, you know. So if the head of the household isn't providing the model for everyone else to follow through, then you just kind of end up with this mixture of things that doesn't really work out, right? So I started learning about Catholicism, and you know, hopefully I said that right, because in my reverb video, I think I said Catholicism, and people were trying to rip me apart for that. I was like, come on, man. But I had learned about Catholicism. Um, it was all right. There was a lot of contradictions in it, and some things that I really, like, as a kid, couldn't understand. And I would ask the questions, and I would get bashed for asking the questions.
Yeah.
Like this simple question of like the Trinity, and like how is there the Father, how is there the Son and the Holy Spirit, and like how are they all like part of one thing if the Father is greater than the Son?
Mm.
And like I asked that as a kid, and I got bashed for it. So like it's something that, I don't know. To me, as a little kid, I just wasn't getting it. You know what I mean? I just wasn't getting it. And then my mom had met this guy because my dad and my mom, they divorced when I was about 4 years old. So think about that, man. Think about it. Like in the beginning, there was no structure, and then after they divorced, even less structure. So then my mom ended up meeting this individual who was a Christian man, and man, very very crooked man, because they were together for like 8 9 years, and I was abused by this man physically, mentally, emotionally, all this stuff. And I'm not talking about like a little, like, oh, like hitting. I'm talking about like legitimate abuse, like getting beat as a kid. So the man was crooked, and the man would always preach about God. And I'm like, in my head, after he would beat me, I would always ask myself, like, how can you speak about God, but then act like this and do
Mm.
these things, you know? So like that left a huge bad taste in terms of just religion and God and all this stuff. And for a while I became atheist. You know, there are many other things that happened during that time,
Yeah.
but for a while I had become atheist because of all these things that had happened. And when I was atheist, I mean, all I was doing was that hedonistic life, just always just trying to seek my pleasures out. And anytime that someone would try to bring up religion, anytime someone would try to bring up spirituality or God, I would shut them down immediately. And so I closed off. I didn't want to hear anything that anyone wanted to say because of my past experiences. And then it wasn't until I'd say like 2015 that I started to come onto the new age stuff, because I had this experience when I was partaking in illegal substances. I had this experience where I was like, there has to be something else. You know, this can't just be it. And then from there,
Mm.
I got into the new age stuff. I got into the meditation. I got into all that spirituality. That's what they called it. And
Yeah.
it started opening me up to like some really bad things. And then I was like, yeah, maybe this is not for me. Like maybe this is just, I'm just not ready for this right now. And at that point, I closed off again. And I wouldn't say I was atheist, but I wouldn't say I was spiritual. It was like this
Mm.
like midway
Okay.
point, like, like not knowing what I'm doing. I'm just kind of like living life here. I'm trying to do self-improvement, but again, it's like you get to the point where you're like, why am I disciplining myself? Why am I striving to be a better version of myself if at the end it doesn't matter? So it's like it started to lead into nihilism, where I was like, you know what, life doesn't matter, none of this matters. And then from there, the girl that I was with, she was Christian, so we started going to church. And then I was like, okay, well, let me try to understand more instead of just close off. And yeah, the same questions started coming up again, and I still couldn't
Mm.
receive any answers from anyone. And I remember I had gone to do a baptism with her, and the lady right before she was gonna dunk me under the water, she's like, "Repeat after me, Jesus is God," or something like that. And I had repeated, "God is God." And this lady got so upset. She just looked at me with the dirtiest look. And I kid you not, she probably held me underneath the water a lot longer than she did everyone else. I felt it. I felt it. Cause like I was counting in my head, like I was like 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 seconds past. I'm like, all right, I've definitely been in this water longer than everyone else. So I don't know, she probably had some bad intentions there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but
Oh,
what happened, bro?
no, no, no. That's just hilarious. I don't think I'm gonna forget that. Waterboard.
Yeah,
Somebody said waterboarding.
yeah, for real, man. But after that, uh, I started to present these questions to my fiance at the time and her family, and none of them could answer the questions. And they started to bring up the question to me. They started to reverse the question and say, "Oh, well, what does this matter? How's this gonna help you?" I'm like, "What? Like, how is this gonna help me? Are you serious?" Like, one of the questions I had is, Jesus goes on, peace be upon him. By the way, I forgot to say peace be upon him. I forget he's a prophet. Definitely peace be upon him. But he disappears in the Bible, and they call it like the dark years or something like that, where he like disappears, and then when he comes back, that's when like he starts being like the legitimate Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, that we know in the Bible. And I was like, you know what? It would be very interesting to know what happened during this time. And like anytime I would bring that up, they'd be like, well, what does it matter? What does it matter if at the end of the day he's Jesus Christ? And I'm like, man, you guys are missing the point. Like, this is very important stuff here. Like, this is stuff that could, now I know it, to increase your iman, increase your faith, your belief. But it's like these little things like this, they couldn't answer, and they didn't want to answer it.
Mm.
They just didn't want to do that. And me and my fiance had split. Then after that, I kind of left Christianity alone because I realized, you know what, this is not giving me anything. I feel like I'm wasting my time here. Let me just kind of relax and then see what comes from this. And
Mm.
by relaxing, again, remember how I said, like, why am I disciplining myself? Right? By me relaxing, it ended up me going back to the hedonistic life, and taking a whole bunch of drugs. And then I got to a point where I was talking to a lot of women, and I had gotten surgery. I had gone to New York to get surgery. And after the surgery, I remember I was sitting in this room, not this room in particular, but a different room. I was sitting down by myself. Bro, I hadn't spoken to anyone for a few days. I was doing a dopamine detox, which I don't know if you know about that, but it's very simple. It's kind of like in Ramadan, where you strip everything away.
Yeah.
You know, so like I had stripped everything away. I was sitting in this room by myself, very depressed, might add, very depressed, very low. And I remember I had this pull to read the Quran. And I had a Quran, by the way. I had a Quran. Because in my time of Jahiliyyah, in my time where I was like, you know what, let me relax. And then I had dipped back into the hedonistic life for like those 2 years. I had bought a Quran and I had bought a Bible just to have, but it was sad that I had it just for like aesthetics, like as a library in my room. And but there was a reason, bro. There's a reason for everything, right? And I remember during a time before what I'm saying here, I had a pull to read the Quran. I didn't read it. I made some excuse up. I didn't read it. So then this time around, I felt the pull again. I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna read it because I'm doing this dopamine detox. I don't want to stimulate myself. I want to just be without any stimulation. So then another day passes by, and I'm like, you know what? It shouldn't be a bad thing. It's a book. It's holy text. So I'm just gonna read it. I feel this pull to read it, and like the pull kept getting stronger and stronger. So when I started to read the Quran, like it was just like, oh wow, like this is amazing. You know, but nothing crazy yet. It was just like, wow, this is amazing. And then by the third day of reading the Quran, I remember I put the Quran down after reading it, and I started to reflect. I do a little meditation, reflecting on it, and something just clicked. And when it all clicked, it's like I guess at that moment in time, I had accepted it 100%, and I felt these like waves going up and down my spine. It was crazy, man. Since that day on, yeah, I am, bro. I'm Muslim.
Allahu Akbar.
Alhamdulillah.
You know, I just want to highlight for anybody who's watching this, if you are interested in Islam, you know, you don't need to be a professor, you don't need to be a quantum theorist, right? You just need to approach the Quran with a sincere, clear heart and just reflect. Like it's not rocket science. Honestly, you know, Anghil, you've given a very beautiful account of how you accepted Islam. And it reminds me, there's a pattern. There's a pattern to what you're saying. And this is a pattern I've seen with many, many converts to Islam, that there are points where they are not in the right mental state, not in the right spiritual state to approach the book. And if they do pick up the Quran, it makes no sense to them. Then there's other times when they have clarity and they have this sincere drive for why am I here? And they're looking for the truth. And it's like they haven't picked up the book before. They read it and they recognize it. And they recognize it in the way that, you know, our parents recognize us. They look at us and that's my child. So when we are looking at the words of the Creator, we recognize these are not just human constructs. There's something profound here. There's something deep here. And one of the things which I want everybody to realize, and this is something which definitely check out Anghil's channel to see this, is if you follow the hedonistic lifestyle, if you follow your desires, you know, there's three main type of materialistic categories which human beings fall into. The first and the obvious one is to seek wealth. The second one is status. And the third one is actually image. So even within our social medias, we would really just see these three things coming out. So when it comes to, for example, wealth, you know, Khabib's father used to say this, that even if you're a millionaire, you can't eat more than one loaf of bread a day. Like once you have, say, $100,000, or you have $1 million, or then $1 billion, what's the real life difference? There is none. And at the end of the day, you are not going to take that to the grave with you. That money is going to go away one day. You're not better than anyone because you have the money either. So it's like you're chasing something which will not really give you fulfillment. The second thing is, in terms of your status. Now, every person has 15 minutes of fame, right? Every person at some points in their life, they're more well known than they were before amongst their friends and family, with some people on social media. But the thing is, all of these things go away. I sometimes look at movie stars or musicians who were famous in the 70s and 80s, and today some of them may be homeless, some of them may be in a retirement home, some of them may be senile, some of them may be doing some job in some low level dramas, but they at one point were handsome and famous, and all of those things ultimately disappear. And the third one is actually status. Always look sorry the third one, sorry, image. But the thing about image, and you find this a lot on Instagram, is people are always trying to get the right image. Sometimes somebody may take 20 minutes to get one picture and put it online, but all of your looks eventually are going to dissipate. You're going to get older, you're going to get gray hair, your energy is going to go down. You're going to I'm even surprised that if someone hits 30, they're considered old now, right? So you're between your 20 and your 30, like, how it's just a few years that you have this. So Islam comes and teaches none of these things matter. The only thing that matters is your relationship with God, your love of God. That's the ultimate thing that matters, that you have this pure worship and love of God. And one of the other things I spoke to you and the brothers in the previous podcast is that true happiness comes through the relationship with God. It doesn't come through any of these things. Now, if there's a poor man, right, and the poor man says, when you're rich, right, it's not going to give you fulfillment, the poor man will be sort of hard to believe because he's poor. But when you get a rich man who says, look, I'm rich, I'm famous, I have this, I have that, but I'm not fulfilled, then that's the real deal. Angel, you went through this, and many other celebrities have gone through this, that they realize you get everything and you realize it's actually meaningless. There's actually no true anchor in there. There's nothing in there to keep you happy. So, we were speaking the other day about how prayer and remembrance of God gives you satisfaction that no experience through image, drug, women, whatever, is going to give you even 1% of that.
Mm-hmm. It's like how you were saying in the podcast, where it's like, if, let's say there was a non-believer, right? Someone who wasn't Muslim, and let's say they were the richest person in this world. They had all the status in the world, that they were the most attractive man in this world. They had everything, and you could trade spots with him for, I think we said, what, like a day or a week or something like that, or a month. And like the answer was no. Like, I'm good exactly where I am. Because it's like, man, like, my life has been a direct testament of that, where it's like, I'm not gonna say I was famous. I'm not even gonna say I'm famous now, brother, because like, these numbers on YouTube, it's just numbers at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like, if I walk on the street, like, not many people are gonna know who I am. So like, I wouldn't say I'm famous by any means, but like, I in my head, I thought I was famous. In my head, I was on some ego trip, and I thought I was just this hot boy, and a lot of women were giving me attention. Bro, I had what I wanted. I didn't have anything else that I wanted. I had my motorcycle, I had my car. I was living on a lake house, like right on the lake, where I could go outside into the backyard and just go onto the lake on the canoe or something like that. I had access to anything I wanted. We could travel, we could do anything. And it's like, every time we did something, I always had this like underlying thing that it was very sobering. And at the moment, I thought it was depressing, but now I'm realizing, like, damn, like, it was necessary for that to happen. And what kept coming up was like, is this it? Is this it? Is this really it? Like, I would be talking to maybe like 4 or 5 girls at once. And you know how it is when you talk to one girl, you have that, like, you feel good. As a man, you feel good when you're talking to a girl. As a girl, they feel good when they're talking to a guy, when they're like just starting to talk to each other, and they're like it's going back and forth. I know
Mm.
it's a little different for the Muslims. You know, it
Well,
would be
it's
more
like the
so.
newly married,
Yeah,
that,
exactly.
that love at, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yep. So like imagine that, but now imagine like that times four or times five, where it's like this abundance, like you have so much of it, and it's like, man, my I can't even say my friend because he's like my brother now, but Fayed, the one I do the podcast with, the T3N, man, like he had told me, he's like, scarcity is a test, but abundance is an even bigger test. And I remember I had that abundance, and again, it's like I would get to like this peak of feeling like just so on top of the world, and then I would just kind of look around and be like, damn, like is this really it? Is this the peak? Is this the peak of what I'm gonna feel here? Because I know if this is the peak, then there's nowhere else. Like I can't go any higher than this. Like the only way, bro, the only place left to go is down. And that's exactly why I went. I went as rock bottom as I could get, only to realize that yes, there is something more.
Mm.
Yes, there is a creator. Yes, there is a reason why we're here. And it's again sobering but very beautiful, man.
It is. And when you were talking, I was remembering Jim Carrey, because he literally said the same thing. He reached a point in his life where, I mean, people have, millions of people have seen your videos, but with his case, we can say hundreds of millions, right? Now, he's known all across the world. Everybody knows this guy, his movies, everything's famous. And he's somebody who literally is at the height of what we are told is going to give happiness. And he literally said, I wish everybody had what I have so that they know this is not the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, what is what is the purpose of a human being? The purpose of a human being is to be in a relationship with the creator. That's the ultimate purpose. So, every single thing in our life, something as small as watching a documentary about nature, you're thinking about God. Even that's worship of God. We fast, we pray, we even have these remembrances that we do after prayer and different types of things. All of these things, we're doing something for the transcendent creator. But everything we do for ourselves, it never lasts. I mean, how long does water last in your body? A few
Mm-hmm.
hours.
Mm-hmm.
How long does, and I'm going to be a bit raw here, but how long does sex last? How long does a buffet last? How long does, a trip on whatever latest drug is out there last? How long do these things last? And then how long do the downers last? Right? So the thing is, ultimately, I think a lot of people realize, okay, there's a problem here. These things aren't making me happy. Maybe I need more. And I think the people who accept Islam and accept God are people who do a projection in the future and say, if I was not known by anybody except maybe 10 of my friends and a few of my family 10 years ago, today I am known by, like in your case, something like a quarter of a million people or subscribers, right? And a few million others. And if this hasn't led to any happiness, then how will going from this to 1 trillion or 1 billion, or how will it's all superfluous? It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, if you have $100,000 in your bank account and you're not happy, how will having a million make you happy? It's just digits. It becomes absolutely meaningless. But what does have a meaning is the peace that your heart has when you submit. you know there's a sweetness to when you realize, I don't need to impress other people anymore. I don't need to try and live up to other people's expectations. I can just do things for the creator, and as long as the creator is happy with me, everything else doesn't really matter anymore.
Yeah, 100%. And the best way that I could drive it home is kind of like what you said about eating. So we use eating as the example, all right? If you're really hungry, you know how good food tastes the moment you take that first bite, right? But the more you eat, it just starts going down and down and down. And like, again, you reach a peak and then you go down.
Yeah.
And it's like if you continue to eat, well, you're just gonna go further and further and further down until you get to the point where you're sick and you want to throw up. And then you ask yourself, man, what the hell did I just do? Like I was so hungry, it tasted so good. I wanted it to keep tasting this good, so I kept eating more. And then, like you said, you think, well, if this is not enough, maybe I need more. So you keep
Mm.
eating more, and then only to get sick. Well, that's the same thing with everything in this world. Like more is not the answer. And when you
No.
take a step back and you realize, it's all fluctuation. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. That's what this life is. This life is temporary. Everything that's born into existence already has an expiration date, you know?
Absolutely.
And when we
Absolutely.
have this expiration date, it should let us know, like, okay, everything in this life is temporary. You experience happiness, temporary. You experience depression, temporary. So then you have some people who they don't want to believe in the afterlife. They don't want to believe in God. They don't want to believe in this stuff, but they understand the fact that it's all temporary. And then they try to say, well, I'm gonna find my happiness in the high states. You know, when I'm happy, I'm happy. When I'm low, I'm just hopeful and, you know, keeping positive until the next high comes. It's like, bro, that's no way to live either. Like you're telling me that you're just gonna, like, that's the point of you being alive, is just to experience the highs and the lows. Like, yes, that is a part of it. You know, we have to experience that for a reason, but like, come on, man.
Mm.
Come on, man.
Absolutely. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, said that if the son of Adam had a valley of gold, he would want another one. So we can have whatever we have in the world, but we'd always want more. And the Prophet went on to say that basically nothing will satisfy us except that when we're in the graves and sand is in our belly, basically it's gone, something like this. I'm paraphrasing the narration here, but basically death will bring an end to this endless drive. Because if you really think about it, take the richest man in the world, and I was actually thinking about this the other day. Take someone like Jeff Bezos, right? So the guy is late 50s. He's, I think, the richest man in America, maybe the richest in the world. I don't know anymore. He started off with, not too much. But if you say to Jeff Bezos, look, you can trade your life with a 15-year-old who has a basic, healthy lifestyle, just basic necessities are met, but you'll be younger. All those years, you'll get them back. He'll give it up. So a 15-year-old will be looking at Jeff Bezos and saying, I wish I had everything he has. He's so rich. And Jeff Bezos is like, I'm an old man. I'm about to die now. I would really love to be a 15-year-old. Right? So the thing is, every human being at their points, they have something somebody doesn't have. So the Prophet taught us to not have this way that we shouldn't be looking up to people who have more than us and getting jealous. In fact, we should be looking at people who have less than us and thinking, man, I have so much. I mean, I gave the example of water earlier. You, Alhamdulillah, have been Muslim for some time now, about a year, I believe. You obviously went through Ramadan. How does it feel after a hot day of fasting that you have water? It's the best feeling in the world. This is like you don't want a Coke, you don't want a 7-Up or whatever, any of these junky drinks. You just want water, and you enjoy it. So Islam in a way is making you do these continuous detoxes, right? These spiritual detoxes, these existential detoxes, to get you to basically be purified. Hence why Islam gives you optimum experience of pleasure, because it's teaching you through self-restraint that true pleasure is in the servitude of something greater than yourself. We all have this. You look up to, obviously now Muslims, but previously as well, you'd look up to certain people and you'd be like, okay, you'd admire a person who's a great sportsman, a great artist, a great philanthropist or whatever. We have this thing in us that we want to praise something greater than ourselves. And Islam teaches, why let that be other human beings? Let that be the creator. Let that be something far greater than you. And I found this thing that people who remember God a lot, through their not only their regular prayers, but just throughout the day, just remembering God, they are people who are almost protected with an invisible shield. You can try and throw something at them to make them upset. It doesn't work. You can try and make them super happy by giving them something materialistic. It won't work. They are no longer dependent upon other human beings giving them status or gratification. They couldn't care less if no one in the world knew their names. And they're so liberated. And those people who are continuously seeking validation from others through views and through other people liking them or their friends praising them or them having some sort of certificate or whatever it is, they are the true slaves because their happiness depends on how other people view them. When the true believer is indifferent to what everybody else cares about, and they really only truly care about what is God's status with them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's different, man. And like, if someone's listening to this and they're not Muslim, it's like you gotta experience it for yourself in order to truly understand. And if anyone wants to say anything about what you said about Jeff Bezos, like, oh, he's not that old, man. It's like, bro, the older you get, the more you start to like realize, like my time is coming soon. Like, and that remembrance of death is very sobering. It lets you realize, like, ooh, like, okay, like my time here is temporary. Like, it's coming to an end. So you're right. Like, if he had the chance to switch places with a 15-year-old, probably he would do it. He would probably do it. But
Even we would do it because
yeah,
every year you lose of your life. Like, I honestly remember being 15 like it was yesterday, literally like it was yesterday.
Yeah, man. It sucks, but it doesn't suck at the same time because we understand further now. But if we didn't understand, then it would suck for sure. But one thing that I want to say here before I forget is that if someone picked up the Quran and it's like it didn't make sense to them, it didn't click for them, it just means it wasn't the time. They weren't ready for it. You know what I mean? Like, I have this book here by Imam al-Ghazali, and it's an amazing book, but I tried picking it up like maybe 6, 7, 8 times, and each time I failed to get a few pages in. I just wasn't ready. But then the moment where it's like, you know what? I stepped down, I emptied my cup, and then I picked up his book. I was like, oh, bro, this is amazing. Like, there's so much in here. And that's the same thing with the Quran. It's like, if I would have picked up the Quran, let's say in 2014, bro, I wouldn't have done anything with it. Actually, I received my first Quran maybe in like end of 2014, beginning of 2015. My sister's baby daddy, he gave me a Quran. You know what I did with that? I left it in this bin, and God knows where it is now. But it goes to show, like, I was not ready at the time.
Yeah.
So it didn't mean anything to me. But once I was ready, the message was received. So it's like, for these people that say, oh, well, I'm ready and I'm not getting anything from it, it's like, okay, well, take a step back and empty your cup. Like, see what was the reason? Like, what other belief systems you have? What other things do you have going on? Like, are your emotions in check or are your emotions out of check? Like, what's going on here that's basically preventing you from receiving that answer? And then the very last thing that I really want to get to people is I've been saying this since the beginning in my channel, but I didn't realize it until years later. But I've been saying to people, like, look, be present. Like, be mindful, be aware of what's going on. Because if you think about it, the only way you can self-reflect on things is if you are truly mindful and present with what you are thinking. If not, you'll be thinking about one thing, you'll be like, oh wow, this bottle is so beautiful, and then out of nowhere you'll be like, yo, I remember that video I watched this morning, and then from there you just keep going on. You know what I mean? So it's like if you can just be mindful, if you can be present, then you're able to self reflect, and self reflection will ultimately lead you to emptying your cup, and will
Mm,
ultimately lead you to receiving the truth and reaching what it is that you're looking for.
yeah,
That's the most powerful thing that I can tell people.
that's a really beautiful way of putting it. For some reason, Angel has dropped off. Maybe some internet issues, so he'll jump back on, inshallah. Um, that was the last thing I was gonna say. There he is back. There you are.
The truth as enemies, bro. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, you put it in a really beautiful way, Angel. That you're looking at this bottle, you're like, oh, that's quite a nice water or whatever, and you think, oh, I saw that video the other day, and then you go on and on. And I was actually thinking about this because in any 10-minute window, if I was to look back at my schedule, say everything I ever thought was written in a book, if I was to go back, say 5 years ago, and look at any time slot of 10 minutes on, say, 2014, January the 1st, 10 o'clock in the morning, any 10-minute window, it will have a lot of disconnected, trivial thoughts. What am I having for breakfast? Why did that guy say that to me? What did he mean by that? What's this new movie coming out on Netflix? And just total nonsense for 10 minutes, just disconnected things. And then social media has allowed us to do that, not in our minds, but through scrolling. So we'll scroll and watch a video of a cat doing something silly, another video of someone singing, another video of someone telling you how they can make money, and you're just scrolling, right? According to one estimate, we scroll about 27.5 meters a day, which is ridiculous, right? But probably more than that. So Islam teaches you true mindfulness, which is you're God conscious. What is the point of me fulfilling my heart, feeding my heart with things which are actually poisonous? Materialism is what you see on social media: image, status, power, money, these things. And whatever the eye sees, then the heart starts to remember and desire. The last thing that you watch, if you fall asleep watching Netflix, you're going to be sleeping thinking about whatever you were watching. So Islam teaches, like you said, to empty your cup, and then you're able to enjoy the most smallest of things, because you're no longer, all of these disconnected thoughts. And one of the powerful things I was actually thinking about is the salah, because the salah is supposed to be disruptive. It's supposed to, so you're in the middle of the day, you're about to, okay, it's prayer time. Then you forget everything. You could be in the middle of making money, or for example, someone's about to do something haram or whatever, and then you just stop. You stand still, you pray. And then in between that prayer and the next prayer, which is a couple of hours, you've again become heedless. So then God reminds you again, okay, stop, go back. So in essence, the prayer is there to make you stop having these materialistic thoughts, or not there to have you stop you having materialistic thoughts, but for you to become so engrossed in this world that you forget about the hereafter. Hence why the prayer brings you back 5 times a day to establish remembrance. Because really and truly, if you think about it, this as somebody who's researched life coach and psychology and these things, the first thing you do in the morning and the last thing you do at night impacts your psychology for a long time. So what's the first thing you're supposed to do when you wake up? You're supposed to pray. What's the last thing you're supposed to do before you sleep? You pray. Also, if a human being feels like doing something forbidden, right? So for example, one of the scholars gave this example. Say there's somebody who wants to do something haram, like take out a girl on a date. What's he going to do? Take her out on a date, and it's like, oh no, it's Asr time. Let me go and pray. Okay, now he's warmed her up. Now he wants to take her to the hotel room, right? to do haramness, and then it's like, oh no, it's going to be Maghrib time, right? And then it's like, oh wait, but if I have sex with her, then I have to have a bath, and how am I going to pray? Like, the prayer is there to stop you doing any of those things. Like, it's very powerful from that perspective.
It
It's
is,
quite
man.
funny that you started mimicking.
Yeah, you started like, hold up, baby, hold up. Let me do real quick.
Allahu
But
Akbar.
Allahu Akbar, man.
The
It's
prayer is a
true, though.
barrier to evil. It's a barrier to evil.
It is, man. And like, just think about it. Think about the day. The day is set up to where you wake up, you have specific things that you want to do in that day, and then you start making moves, you start taking action, right? Or maybe you don't have really anything. You're just sitting back, relaxing, watching Netflix, just enjoying yourself. Either or, what ends up happening is you become consumed in what you're doing. And when you become consumed, like you said, you forget the hereafter. You forget that tomorrow is actually not promised. And that right now, this moment in time is really all that you have available to you. Because the past was still right now, and the future is still going to be right now. And you don't know if you're going to die in the next hour, in the next 2 hours, and then when you do that salah, when it's time for prayer, it's like, okay, let me remember again why I'm truly here. Let me remember like the exact reason. Let me bring myself back. Let me stop getting so obsessed and so consumed. Like, I don't know about you, but sometimes I would have these moments where I'd be on my phone and I'll be researching something. And when you get deep into research and you're just like, ooh, like there's an answer to this. I just know there's an answer. And you're just going deep. And then you're like, oh, it's prayer time. And you got to put it aside. And like, while you're making wudu, like all you can think about is like, yo, but I wonder what that thing was. Like, what about that? And like, you're doing this thing. And then you start hitting your prayer. And then like midway into your prayer, whatever you were thinking about before is now completely obsolete. And now all you can think about is the creator. All you can think about is what you're reciting. It brings you back. And that's why I think it's so beautiful, man. My own mom, when I became Muslim, she had asked me, she's like, why do you pray 5 times a day? And I'm like, well, I don't just pray 5 times a day. Like, I pray more than that. And she's like, oh, but I thought you do 5. I'm like, yeah, we have 5 obligatory, like 5 that we do in specific times. She's like, but why do you do that? What's the point of that? Like, why should you have a specific time where you pray? Like, you should be able to pray anytime. I'm like, all right, let me ask you something. How many times do you pray? And then she's like, I pray in the morning and the nighttime. I was like, okay, so about 2 times. I was like, when you pray at nighttime, do you fall asleep during your prayer? She's like, yeah. I was like, okay, so you actually really only pray once. And then she started thinking. I'm like, okay, when you pray that one time, you feel in tune and you feel grateful and you feel at peace, at least for a little bit, right? At least for a little bit. And then she's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, now what happens an hour later? And then she was like thinking for a second. I'm like, yeah, all that little peace you felt is now gone. So you're telling me that you want to feel that little peace just for that little bit of time, and then you want to be at dis-ease the entire day until you get to the end where you start praying and you don't even experience the peace before you finish the prayer because you don't even finish the prayer. You know what I mean? So I'm like, and I told her, I was, look, these prayers is to bring you back to that peace, to bring you away from all the chaos and bring you back to your centeredness, your groundedness to the creator. And like when I had said that, she's like, like that makes so much sense.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's
man.
a beautiful way of explaining it. Yeah. That's quite deep. We are, in essence, looking for peace. Somebody could be sitting at a beach, and you could look at a picture of somebody at a beach, and they're sitting at a beach. They got a beautiful beach body. They are staring out at the sun. They have a private villa behind them. They have a speedboat. They have an alcoholic beverage next to them. They have the opposite genders there. They have status, money, power, wealth, everything. And any time you're looking at them, you're thinking, wow, that person looks happy, they look like they have it all. But it could be that they have cancer and they only have 2 weeks left to live, and this is just their way of spending their time, and they're actually deep down miserable, although to your eyes they look happy. Likewise, the thoughts in your head that you know everything is going to come to an end are like a cancer. They actually diminish. Even if you're 15 and you somehow believe with certainty that you're going to live up to 70 and you're a millionaire and you're famous and you're good looking and everything, just the mere fact that you know it's going to come to an end, you cannot really enjoy it. It's like me saying to you, here you go, have this new mobile phone, but it's not really yours. I'm going to take it back. You can't really enjoy it. So deep down, we want something that we can enjoy, that we know will not be taken away from us. And the relationship we have with God is eternal, because that relationship will transcend into the next life. And in the next life, our relationship with God will depend upon the relationship we have with God in this life. And one of the scholars said, if you haven't entered the paradise of this world, you will not enter the paradise of the hereafter world. Now, I'm not saying this is an absolute statement and everybody has to experience it. I'm not saying that. And even that scholar, he meant it in a particular context. It's not for everybody. What he meant was, if you don't find peace with the Creator in this life, happiness with the Creator in this life, how are you going to find something like that in hereafter? As a rhetorical question. So one last thing I want to cover with you, because I'm really grateful that you gave me your time today. We've gone past the hour. Is why should Muslims speak to non-Muslims about Islam, and why is it important for you as a Muslim now to get other non-Muslims to understand your perspective? Why is this so important?
Because if we weren't meant to, then we would just be here alone. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I get it. We're born here alone and we die alone. But as we're here, we are not alone. We are with others, which
Yeah.
means that we are in this test all together. So it's like we should do our best to tell people and just remind them. Because, like, if I'm doing something wrong, I want to be reminded.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm playing basketball, right, and I'm over here hitting these shots, right, and I'm doing the form completely wrong, would I want my teammate to remind me, or would I want my teammate to just let me do what I'm gonna do and continue to shoot the ball in the wrong way and continue to miss shots and have a sloppy form for the rest of our time playing? Right? No, I would want my teammate to be like, bro, your form is sloppy. You have to correct this, and that, and then it'll be on point, and then you'll be making your shots. And then I do so, and I start making my shots. I'm like, oh wow, thank you. You know what I mean? And I feel like
Mm.
that's what we're here for. We're just here to remind each other. And if people still don't want to, well, just imagine this: like, how much love do you have for your family? You have a
Yeah.
lot of love for your family. Well, let's think about the two people, for the most part, that you have the most love for, at least in general, generally speaking, is your mother and your father. Right now, let's say you're a Muslim. You were born Muslim. And now let's say that somewhere along the line, you got real serious, like you woke up and then you actually started to experience what it was like to be a real Muslim, not just by name, but actually by heart.
Yeah.
But then your parents completely just disregarded Islam and they stopped believing in Islam. Would you then let them continue, or would you then remind them? If you would remind them, why would you remind them? Because you love them, because you want the best for them, and that should be no different with any other person in this world. We should always want the best for everyone else. And I mean, at least that's in my mind. That's how I see it, and that's why I think we should continue to, share the reminder and
Mm.
tell people in whatever shape it may be. I remember speaking to Hamza Sources. May Allah bless him, bro. He's a
Mm.
great individual. But he was saying, like, when you're speaking to someone, you have to meet them where they're at. You know, like you can't speak to them in a way where they're just not, it's not gonna reach them.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if you're giving someone a reminder, give them a reminder in a way where it's gonna reach them. So like let's say, I don't know, let's say right now someone's like really deep into working out. Like really, really deep into working out. And you want to remind them about God, you want to remind them about the creator, you want to remind them about Islam. It's like you wouldn't just go straight up to them and be like, yo, brother, you gotta pray. You gotta worship the most high. He's gonna be like, yeah, I know, but right now, like I'm focused on these gains. I'm trying to get ripped. I'm trying to get diesel. You know, like instead you would approach him and be like, yo, how's your diet going right now? What are you doing for your diet? Like ask
Mm.
them about what they're doing, and then when they start telling you all these things, be like, so if you got this wrong here, then you wouldn't receive your results. You wouldn't achieve that ripped body that you're looking for. You know, if you started, if you're in a calorie deficit and then you start eating at a calorie surplus, you actually wouldn't lose the weight. You wouldn't lose the fat, right? Right? And you
Yeah.
would obviously agree, right? So you're meeting them where they are, and then you could then relate that back to the creator and maybe relate it back to what they might be doing wrong, what they might have to fix, and then obviously do that in private. But you know, I just think that's most prime to be able to reach
Absolutely.
people.
Absolutely. You know, you definitely speak to people on their level, and we all need to use whatever influence we have to reach out to people that we can. So, for example, with yourself, you have a quite a young following, and you can speak to them in a way that relates to them. So, especially the no fap stuff, that's a huge problem nowadays. You're getting youth who are, if you just speak to them about the importance of worshiping God, that sounds so abstract and alien to them. But if you say to
Mm,
them, look, at the end of the day, I know a lot of young people, and these young people are in depression because of constant problems with pornography and how this impacts their self-esteem, their testosterone, their, serotonin, and so on and so forth. And at the end of the day, is there something greater that you could be doing with your time than something very animalistic like this? And that's going to get them thinking. Then you can talk about, do you find that when you sometimes stare out at the stars, or you watch a documentary which is showing the deep ocean, how do you feel? Yeah, I feel great. Well, if you could connect with the one who created those things, you'd feel even greater than you do if you watch something like these things that people watch online. And so
mm,
you speak in a way that they're like, I see,
mm,
and that is life changing.
mm,
It's really something which I'm honestly starting to think that Allah's allowing us to be online, whether you are commenting or you're making videos or you're on, some sort of, even amongst your friends and family. Allah's allowing us to actually share the beautiful message of Islam from the comforts of our homes. Nobody is nobody has an excuse that I'm in a position that I cannot share. Everybody's in that position. Even sometimes people accept Islam because they read a comment left on a channel somewhere which links to a website or links to this or links to that. So I'd really like to thank you for your time. I don't want to take this take longer than necessary to actually cover your story and what you do. I do want to highlight to people that if you haven't already checked out Anghil's channel, please do so. Tell your friends and family about it. And sometimes, with your non-Muslim friends and family, you may be like, well, I don't want to send them to something quite religious. They may put them off. So, Ankhil's channel is something which you'll find, a lot of life help stuff, life hack stuff, productivity stuff, and within it you'll get the subtle message. So, it's at least one way of beginning. And of course, for other people, you can just send them direct Islamic videos. So, is there any last message you'd like to give, Anghil, before we end?
yeah. So the last message I want to give is that secretly all of us want to be better, right? We all want to improve at something. We all want to be better in one way, shape, or form. And that's a good way to reach people. Because if you think about this, right, in the Quran, it says that Allah will not change the individual or anything around the individual, the situation, unless the individual changes themselves internally. And it's like, okay, well, if you think about it, if you want to improve better, that's already you wanting to change. So everyone wants to change in one way, shape, or form. And if you can tap into that and you can get people on that level, which is kind of like what I do with self-improvement, you're opening doors in ways that you might not even be able to perceive. So again, meet people where they're at, but then try to phrase it in a way where it's like, what do you want to be better at? What do you want to experience more than what you're experiencing right now? And then, that ultimately leads to self-reflection. Like you said, you tell them about like the feeling that they felt when they were watching that thing on Netflix, and you're like, oh, how beautiful would it be if you were to connect with the creator? And they're like, oh, like I didn't think about that. That's self-reflecting. They're self-reflecting. That's how they start to get to the answer. They get to closer and closer and closer, and God willing, they will come to the truth. So, and that's it, man. I think
Beautiful.
it's perfect right there, man. It's been
That's a
beautiful.
really nice way of ending. May Allah bless you. Thank you so much for giving me your time. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.